Hi, I'm Leon Tolmay, and welcome back to St. John the Apostle Apologetic Society. Today we'll be considering arguments and counter-arguments for the existence of God. Starting off with the agnostic or atheist argument, and then countering with our miracles do not happen, as they violate the laws of nature. Although this is all good and well, one cannot have it both ways. A miracle, by definition, defies the laws of nature. If it did not, it would be something explainable by science and hence not a miracle. Miracles should be empirically testable. Well, yes and no. If you mean that we should be able to test based on empirical evidence that such and such an event is not possible, I agree. If, however, we are looking for reproducibility, well then, please refer back to what we've just said on the previous point. But, to make a long story short, miracles do happen. In the Catholic Church, they maintain a particularly stringent requirements in validating a miracle's authenticity. The process is overseen by the Congregation of the Causes of Saints. The Catholic Church attributes miraculous causes to many otherwise inexplicable phenomena on a case-by-case basis. Only after all other possible explanations have been asserted to be inadequate will the Church assume divine intervention and declare a miracle. And yet there remains a small but significant proportion of those investigated assigned as miracles. Right. Next portion that we're dealing with is consciousness. That consciousness depends on the physical brain. Why? Well, the argument is that there are lots of people with Alzheimer's or under anesthetic, that appear not to have any consciousness. However, here we're dealing with conflating issues. One is existence after death, and the other is perceptions within this life. However, just as a side note, for interest's sake, there have been many accounts of complete awareness during anesthetic. The other Mankimo argument is the existence of evil in the world. If the existence of evil in the world points to there not being God, because otherwise God would prevent this evil. However, as a counter to this, I think one is missing the point here. Man was given free will for the explicit reason that he would not be mere robots or zombies, and that would be able to make our own decisions similar to God. Under these set of circumstances, one must expect that individuals and or groups will do things that we do not agree with. It is up to us to decide whether or not we want to take the path of good or evil. Another argument is free will is a contradiction in terms if one believes in an omniscient God. Usually the argument goes somewhat like this. An omniscient God knows everything that you're doing, and in addition, everything that you will do. Hence you are preordained to a certain path, and hence there is no free will. Come on, guys. What a load of cosmos. If one knows someone reasonably well, and that's us as human beings, under most circumstances one can predict with a large degree of confidence how that person is going to react to a certain set of circumstances, with the obvious exception in the case of men with women. Does this mean that the person in question is not exhibiting free will? No. All it means is that the person has decided upon a certain belief or belief system, and that you are aware of that belief. Hence, you can logically infer what that person's reaction is going to be. How much more so a being that knows all of your thoughts? Another making one question brought up by agnostics and atheists is evolution is more likely in a godless world. Is that so? It might surprise you that Genesis is actually an account of evolution. It states explicitly that man came from the earth and God provided the final touch of man by breathing his spirit into him and thus creating a soul. Counter-argument to that by the agnostic may be, yes, but we share 97% of our DNA with chimpanzees. Yes, however, without going into too much detail, that's what Google is for, this is not exactly true. If one takes the sequencing and the so-called junk DNA into account, as well as the correspondence the correspondence is much lower. This is sitting around about 43% now. But even if this was the case, one should ask the question, why not? After all, DNA does such a sterling job. Why not reuse it for alternative circumstances? In actual fact, one would be surprised if all living things had different makeup. How would we find anything to eat, etc.? Insofar as divine hiddenness was concerned, the argument goes that a personal God that wanted loving relationships with human beings wouldn't be so hidden. Doesn't that sort of miss the point of free will? If I knew that God personally and had two-way chats with him on a daily basis, would I not feel coerced to a certain extent to do exactly what he wants? After all, if I do not, I know exactly what the consequences will be, thus limiting my ability to express my freedom of choice. So I don't think that argument works very well. Another one is religious confusion in the world is incompatible with a God that wants us to get it right. Yep, you're absolutely correct. However, one needs to examine who is creating this confusion. It is not weird, is it not weird, as humans that form our own opinions and deviate from the traditions and laws passed down through the years? Why, yes, I believe it is. And we have ample proof that this is the case. Nevertheless, once again, one has to consider that we have been provided with freedom of choice. And it is through these choices and our belief in our own infallibility of reason, arrogance, that we make these decisions. Another is God's existence cannot be rescued by claiming the need for a first cause. As best as we can determine, time and space began with the Big Bang. Prior to the Big Bang, there was no time or space in which sequential causation could have occurred. So we cannot speak of the universe as coming into existence as needing a cause, in the same sense that a tall building in the middle of a city needs a cause. Yeah. Okay, it's a reasonably good argument. However, once again, the person utilizing this argument has missed the point. First, let's look at some pertinent aspects. We live in a universe which, for all its wonders, is still heavily constrains us in what we can do. Mass, which is energy, creates an informed space. This has some drawbacks. Gravity. If we want to do anything, we have to compensate for gravity. This in turn requires the expending of energy, which in turn increases entropy. Space-time. Here we're constrained to a certain space within a certain time. Additionally, the arrow of time points from the present to the future and not vice versa. Hence, causality must be maintained. The individual elements of which mass is made up is of a limited nature, and one can only combine in certain configurations. Additionally, as a general rule, as one proceeds down the periodic table, elements become increasingly rare, and this practically reduces the potential combinations we can utilize. Furthermore, the lower one goes down the periodic table, especially below iron, the more radioactive elements become, thus minimizing the utilization as well as the lifespan of the element. Energy. This is a doing stuff. However, nature does not render energy easily, nor without a cost. Energy from carbon, by far the least efficient and most detrimental of all energy forms. Global warming can attest to that. Solar, water, and wind energy, once again, initially requires tremendous amounts of energy to be expanded in making these products before they can be utilized. Nuclear energy. In the case of nuclear fission, we take highly radioactive materials and cause them to break apart. A small proportion of the mass of the material is then released as energy. The only hassle is that these materials are extremely rare, and once they have been used, they cannot be used again, because they no longer exist. In nuclear fusion, we are combining elements, specifically a certain type of hydrogen. Slightly more abundant. However, it is fiendishly difficult to maintain the reaction. Actually, a feasible method that could produce energy is still not available to this day, even though research has been done on a continuous basis for decades. Space, although this does provide us with room to exist, so that we're not living on top of each other, it does create some quite unique constraints. In order to get from one place to another, requires the expending of energy, and as mentioned previously, this increases entropy and depletes valuable resources. The same applies when trying to transport something from one place to another. We are constrained to be in one place at a particular time. In addition, there is a certain maximum speed at which we can travel between places. That's 299,792.458 kilometers per second. This may seem an incredibly high speed. However, if this world starts to get a bit crowded and we have to move to alternative habitable planets, in this case the speed is extremely slow. Additionally, as one speeds up in space, the energy required in order to gain more speed goes up exponentially as the spaceship approaches the speed of light. Eventually, one needs an infinite amount of energy to achieve this maximum velocity. Sorry, we don't have this. Time. The universe we live in does not allow us to observe the future. Yes, we can make educated guesses. Additionally, the past is available to us either through memory or documented accounts, so we can learn from the past, although we very rarely do. However, it does not alter the fact that we are constrained within the current instance of our existence. These are but a few of the constraints we live with in our universe. This is not to say that a few selected individuals, have not found ways of working within these confines and still achieving great things. This is entirely true. However, the point is they had to work within the constraints of this universe. Now let's get back to the original subject. Okay, who is speaking of sequential causation? As you infer, to the best of our knowledge, all energy was created at the time of the Big Bang. This in turn became matter, which in turn informed and created both space and time. Let's examine the physical state in which a first cause would exist. There is no space, no time, no mass. In fact, there are none of those criteria that impose the constraints on our universe. There is no infinite regression insofar as who preceded whom, as there is no previous. In a similar way, one cannot argue in relation to any decision of God, as that implies that at some time he had not decided. However, as time does not exist in that state, there is no time in which he decided. Simply because all of the stuff we know does not exist within the God state, this does not imply there is nothing. Merely that there is nothing that we are familiar with. To consider anything else only shows a complete and utter lack of imagination. It does not take a huge imagination to consider what may be possible if all of the constraints of our universe were to be removed. Thank you for joining me in this expert, and there will be more videos to follow in which we consider arguments for and against God. So please join us once again on our next video. Have a great day and God bless.